My husband kept disappearing between 2 and 4 a.m., and I was convinced he was cheating until I saw what he was actually doing. The first time it happened, I thought I was dreaming. I woke up at 2:47 a.m. and reached across the bed. Empty, cold sheets, like he'd been gone for a while. I sat up and listened. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator downstairs. No toilet flushing, no water running, no sounds of someone getting a midnight snack. "Jake?" I called out. Nothing. I walked through every room, checked the bathrooms, looked in the garage. His car was still there. His phone was charging on his nightstand. His wallet sat on the dresser. I went back to bed telling myself he probably just couldn't sleep and went for a walk around the neighborhood. We'd been married for 8 years. He'd never done this before, but people develop weird habits sometimes. He came back at 3:52 a.m. I pretended to be asleep and watched through barely open eyes as he slipped back into bed. His breathing was heavy like he'd been running. His hair looked damp with sweat. In the morning, I asked him about it. "Did you go somewhere last night?" He looked at me with genuine confusion. "What? No, I slept like a rock." "Why?" "I woke up and you weren't there." "You must have been dreaming, babe. I didn't go anywhere." He kissed my forehead and left for work. I convinced myself he was right. Maybe I had been dreaming. But then it happened again 3 nights later. 2:31 a.m. Bed empty. Gone for exactly 1 hour and 14 minutes. This time when he came back, I sat up and turned on the light. "Where were you?" He blinked at me like I'd just woken him up. "What are you talking about? You were gone. For over an hour." "Honey, I've been right here the whole time." He reached for my hand. "Are you feeling okay? Maybe you should see a doctor." The way he said it made me doubt myself. His voice was so sincere, so concerned, like I was the one losing my mind. "Maybe you're right," I said quietly, but I knew what I saw. I know when my husband is next to me and when he's not. The third time, I stayed awake on purpose. 2:19 a.m. He got out of bed so carefully I almost didn't notice. He was wearing his gym shorts and a t-shirt. He walked downstairs without turning on any lights. I waited 5 minutes, then followed him. He wasn't in the kitchen, wasn't in the living room. The front door was unlocked and standing slightly open. He'd left the house at 2 a.m. without his phone, wallet, or keys. I stood in the doorway watching the empty street. My hands were shaking. My throat felt tight. What was he doing? Where was he going? He came back 47 minutes later. I'd been sitting on the couch in the dark waiting for him. When the door opened, I turned on the lamp. "Jesus!" He jumped. "You scared me. Where were you?" He looked down at himself like he was just realizing he was standing there. I don't know. I must have been sleepwalking." "Sleepwalking? For almost an hour? Outside?" "I don't know what to tell you. I don't remember leaving." He sat down next to me. His hands were shaking too. This is really freaking me out. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But his gym shoes had fresh mud on them. There were small scratches on his arms. And when I leaned closer, I could smell something on him. Perfume. Floral and sweet. Not mine. "You smell like perfume." His eyes went wide. "What? No, I don't." "Yes, you do. Smell your shirt." He lifted his collar and sniffed. "I don't smell anything." "Babe, you're being paranoid." Maybe I was paranoid. Or maybe I was married to a liar. That morning, I found a receipt in his gym shorts pocket. Barnes & Noble. $67.43. Purchased 3 days ago. I checked our credit card statement. He'd paid cash. Jake doesn't read books. He hasn't been inside a Barnes & Noble since college. I started watching him more carefully. He seemed normal during the day. Loving. Attentive. He kissed me before work. Texted me funny memes during lunch. Made dinner with me at night. But something was different. He'd started taking a new supplement his doctor prescribed for his anxiety. Little white pills he took every night before bed. He never missed a dose. The nighttime disappearances continued every 3 or 4 nights, always between 2 and 4 a.m., always for 40 minutes to an hour, and he never remembered any of it. Or at least that's what he claimed. I started documenting everything. I kept a notebook under my side of the mattress. Time he left, time he returned, condition when he came back, mud on shoes, scratches on arms. Once there was a small bruise on his shin. Another time his socks were soaked through like he'd been walking through wet grass. I tried to tell myself there had to be a rational explanation. Maybe he was having stress episodes. Maybe work was getting to him. He'd been promoted to senior manager 3 months ago, and the pressure was intense. But the evidence kept piling up in ways that made innocent explanations feel stupid. On the 7th night, he came back with dirt under his fingernails. Not just a little bit. Caked in there like he'd been digging. His knees had grass stains. Both of them, like he'd been kneeling in someone's yard. I checked our garden the next morning. Nothing disturbed. No signs of digging anywhere. So where had he been? What had he been doing on his knees in the dirt at 3 a.m.? I started Googling everything. Husband sneaking out at night. Signs your spouse is cheating. How to catch a cheater. Every article said the same thing. Unexplained absences. Lying about whereabouts. Strange smells. Defensive behavior when questioned. Check, 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 check. But there was also another possibility I kept pushing away. What if he was involved in something illegal? The secrecy. The cash purchases. The middle of the night activities. What if he'd gotten mixed up in drugs or gambling or something worse? I thought about calling his mother. We'd always been close, but what would I even say? "Hey, Margaret, your son keeps disappearing in the middle of the night, and I think he might be either cheating on me or running some kind of criminal enterprise." She'd think I'd lost my mind. On the 9th night, I decided to check his phone while he was in the shower. I'd never done that before. In 8 years of marriage, I'd never once looked through his messages. My hands were shaking as I unlocked it. His password was still our anniversary. I went through his texts first. Nothing suspicious, just Just work stuff and group chats with his friends. Normal conversations about football and weekend plans. His call log was clean too. No unknown numbers, no deleted calls. His email was boring. Work, spam, a few newsletters he never read. I was about to give up when I noticed his Maps history. I clicked on it and my heart stopped. There were dozens of locations I didn't recognize. Different addresses all over town, some in neighborhoods I'd never even been to. The timestamps were all between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. But here's what made my blood run cold. When I clicked on the individual locations, there were no routes. No directions, just pins dropped at these random addresses, like he'd been standing at these locations long enough for his phone to register them, but he hadn't been using the GPS to get there. Or maybe he didn't have his phone with him at all, and it was tracking him from the house. No, that didn't make sense. I'd seen his phone on the nightstand when he left. Unless he was taking it and I just didn't notice. I took screenshots of everything. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I installed a tracking app on his phone, the kind that runs in the background and sends real-time location updates to my email. I felt sick doing it. This wasn't me. I wasn't the kind of wife who spied on her husband, but I also wasn't the kind of wife whose husband disappeared every few nights and couldn't remember where he'd been. Jake got out of the shower and I was sitting on the bed pretending to read. He kissed the top of my head. "You okay? You seem tense." "Just tired." "Me too." He took his pill and climbed into bed next to me. I lay there in the dark, my mind racing. The tracking app was active. If he left tonight, I'd know exactly where he went. At 2:43 a.m., my phone buzzed. Movement detected. I watched the little blue dot on my screen as it moved down our street. Left on Maple, right on Harrison. Then it stopped at an address I recognized from his Maps history, 1847 Harrison Avenue. I pulled up Google Street View. It was a small brick house with a neat lawn and a rose garden in front. An older couple lived there, according to the property records I'd looked up earlier that day. The Hendersons, both in their 70s. Why was my husband standing outside a random elderly couple's house at 3 a.m.? I watched the dot. It didn't move for 11 minutes. Then it shifted to the side of the house, stayed there for 6 minutes, then moved to the backyard. What was he doing? The dot stayed in the backyard for 23 minutes. Then it started moving again. Back down Harrison, right on Maple, heading home. I closed the app and pretended to be asleep when he came back. His breathing was labored again. He went straight to the bathroom and I heard water running. When he came back to bed, his hair was wet. The next morning, I drove to 1847 Harrison Avenue. I sat in my car across the street for 40 minutes trying to work up the courage to knock on the door. Finally, I did it. An older woman answered. White hair, kind eyes, cardigan with little flowers on it. "Can I help you, dear?" "Hi, I'm so sorry to bother you. I'm doing some research for a neighborhood watch program, and I wanted to ask if you've noticed anything unusual lately. Any suspicious activity at night?" She frowned. "Now that you mention it, yes. My husband thought he heard someone in our backyard last week. When we looked out the window, we didn't see anyone, but our garden hose was running. We definitely didn't leave it on." My stomach dropped. "Did you call the police?" "Oh no, we figured it was just kids playing a prank. But then a few nights later, I woke up and saw someone standing in our rose garden. Just standing there, not doing anything, just standing. Did you see who it was?" "It was too dark, but it scared me half to death." I woke up Harold, and by the time we got outside, whoever it was had gone. I thanked her and walked back to my car on legs that barely worked. Jake had been in their backyard, standing in their rose garden, turning on their hose, and he didn't remember any of it. This wasn't an affair. This was something else, something worse. That night, I sat Jake down before he took his pill. "We need to talk." "About what?" "I've been tracking your phone. You've been going to different houses at night. You're going into people's yards. You're turning on their hoses. You're standing in their gardens." His face went pale. "What are you talking about?" "The Hendersons on Harrison Avenue. You were in their backyard 3 nights ago." "I've never even heard of the Hendersons." "I know. That's the problem." I showed him the tracking data, the Maps history, the screenshots of all the different locations. He stared at the screen like it was showing him someone else's life. I didn't. "Are you sure this is my phone?" "Jake, look at it. It's your phone. These are your locations." He put his head in his hands. "What's happening to me?" "I think it's the medication." "What?" "No. Dr. Hammond said it was safe." "Did he tell you about the side effects?" "He said I might feel drowsy or have some weird dreams." "Did he mention sleepwalking or doing things while asleep?" "No, he definitely didn't mention that." I pulled up the Ambien warnings on my phone, made him read them. All of them. When he finished, his hands were shaking. "Oh God, what if I hurt someone? What if I break into a house and someone thinks I'm a burglar and shoots me? You need to stop taking these right now." "But what about my anxiety? It's been so much better. I've been sleeping through the night for the first time in months." "You haven't been sleeping, Jake. You've been wandering around the neighborhood doing God knows what." He agreed to call Dr. Hammond first thing in the morning, but that night, he still took his pill. He said he needed one more good night of sleep before dealing with all of this. I should have stopped him, should have flushed the pills down the toilet, but I didn't. At 2:17 a.m., the tracking app alerted me. Movement detected. This time, I decided to follow him again. I needed to see with my own eyes what he was doing. I kept my distance, watched him walk his usual route down Maple. But this time, instead of turning on Harrison, he kept going straight. Walked 4 more blocks into a neighborhood I didn't recognize. He stopped in front of a house with a white fence. My stomach dropped. He stood there for a moment, just staring. Then he opened the gate and walked up to the front door. I watched him knock. Once, twice, 3 times. No one answered. He knocked again. Harder. Still nothing. Then he tried the doorknob. Locked. I expected him to give up, to come back. But instead, Instead, he walked around to the side of the house and tried a window, also locked. What was he doing? This was escalating. This was dangerous. I crept closer, hiding behind a neighbor's car. Jake went to the back of the house. I heard a sound. Glass breaking. Oh my God. He was breaking into someone's house. My mind was racing. I should call 911. I should stop him. I should do something. But I just stood there, frozen, watching my husband commit a crime he wouldn't even remember. I heard him moving around inside the house. Footsteps. Something heavy being moved. And silence. 5 minutes passed. 10, 15. What was he doing in there? Then I heard a woman scream. A real scream. High-pitched and terrified. Get out! Get out of my house! Lights turned on inside. I could see shadows moving. I ran toward the house without thinking. My husband was in there. A woman was screaming. I don't even know what I needed to do. I just ran. I got to the broken window just as a man appeared. Not Jake. A different man. Older. Holding a baseball bat. I called the police. He yelled into the house. They're on their way! Then Jake appeared in the window. His eyes were completely blank, unfocused, like he was looking at nothing. Jake! I screamed. He didn't respond. Didn't even seem to hear me. The man with the bat yelled again. Get out now before I— That's when Jake turned and walked toward the back door. Not running, not panicking, just walking, like he was leaving a friend's house after dinner. He came out the back door and walked right past me. Didn't acknowledge me at all. Just kept walking. I followed him back home in complete shock. He walked the entire way without looking at me once. When we got to our house, he went inside, walked upstairs, got back into bed, and closed his eyes, like nothing had happened. I sat on the edge of the bed, shaking. My phone was in my hand. I should call someone. A doctor, the police, someone, but I just sat there, frozen. Sirens wailed in the distance. They were probably at that house right now, taking statements, looking for evidence. They'd find the broken window. They'd see Jake's footprints. Would they come here? Would they figure out it was him? I couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight. I kept seeing his blank eyes in that window. The complete absence of recognition when I screamed his name. The next morning, Jake woke up cheerful, made coffee, asked me what I wanted for breakfast. Do you remember anything from last night? I asked. I slept great, actually. Why? You broke into someone's house. He stared at me. What? You walked 6 blocks away, broke a window, went inside someone's house. The homeowners woke up and screamed. I followed you the whole time. His face went white. That's not— I didn't— Are you serious? Dead serious. He sat down heavily. I don't remember any of that. I swear to God, I don't remember. The police are probably looking for you. Oh my God. He put his head in his hands. What's wrong with me? That's when I remembered the pills. The white pills he'd been taking every night. When did this start? The disappearing? I don't know. A few weeks ago? When did you start the new medication? Dr. Hammond prescribed it like a month ago for my anxiety. I grabbed the pill bottle from the bathroom. Ambien, 10 mg. Take 1 tablet at bedtime. I pulled out my phone and Googled Ambien sleepwalking. The first result made my blood run cold. Ambien has been linked to complex sleep behaviors, including sleepwalking, sleep driving, and engaging in activities while not fully awake. Patients have reported cooking, eating, making phone calls, having sex, and even driving while asleep with no memory of these events. In rare cases, patients have committed crimes including assault and breaking and entering. I showed Jake the screen. His hands started shaking. Oh my God, what have I been doing? What if I hurt someone? We went to the police station that morning, explained everything, showed them the medication. They took a report but said since nothing was stolen and no one was hurt, they'd note it was a medical issue. The homeowner was understandably furious, but agreed not to press charges after seeing Jake's prescription and medical records. Jake stopped taking Ambien immediately. His doctor switched him to a different medication. The nighttime disappearances stopped, but that wasn't the end of it. 3 days after Jake stopped taking the pills, we got a call from a woman named Diane Pritchard. She lived 2 streets over from us. Is this Jake Morrison's wife? She asked. My throat went tight. Yes, who's this? My name is Diane. I think your husband has been coming to my house at night. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. What? About 2 weeks ago, I kept finding things moved around in my garage, tools in different places. My bike moved from one side to the other. I thought I was going crazy. Then last week, I installed a security camera. Oh no. Oh, no. I have footage of a man entering my garage at 3:14 a.m. last Tuesday. He stayed for 18 minutes. He didn't steal anything. He just reorganized my toolbox, lined up all my screwdrivers by size, arranged my paint cans by color. I couldn't speak. I showed the footage to my neighbor, and she said she thought she recognized him. Said he lives a few streets over. I looked you up in the neighborhood directory. I'm so sorry, I managed to say. My husband was on medication that was causing severe sleepwalking. He stopped taking it. It won't happen again. I just wanted to know why. Why my garage? Why my tools? He doesn't remember any of it. I promise you he had no idea what he was doing. She was quiet for a long moment. Okay, I believe you, but I'm keeping the cameras up just in case. After I hung up, I told Jake. He looked like he was going to be sick. I was in someone's garage, organizing their tools? Apparently. What else did I do? Where else did I go? We spent the next week finding out. A man 3 streets over had noticed his trash cans being rearranged every few days, always perfectly lined up, always with the lids facing the same direction. A woman on Chestnut Avenue said someone had been watering her garden at night. She thought it was a kind neighbor. It was Jake. An elderly couple on Birch Street reported that their porch furniture kept being wiped down, the cushions fluffed, the little decorative pillows arranged just so. Jake had been wandering the neighborhood for weeks, doing random household chores for people he'd never met, people whose names he didn't even know, and he couldn't remember any of it. But here's what keeps me up at night. Those 2 weeks before I followed him, what else did he do? The mud, The scratches, the perfume. Where was he going? What was he doing? The Barnes & Noble receipt, the book, the inscription. For my daughter, with love. I couldn't let it go. I needed to know. I drove to every elementary school within a 5-mile radius, sat in the parking lots during pickup time, watched the kids pour out of the buildings with their backpacks and lunchboxes. I was looking for something, anything, some clue that would explain why my husband bought a children's book and wrote that inscription. On the 4th day, at the 3rd school, I saw her, a little girl with blonde pigtails and a pink backpack. She was maybe 7 or 8 years old, and she was holding a book, The Secret Garden. My heart stopped. I got out of my car and walked closer. She was sitting on the front steps waiting for her mom, reading, completely absorbed in the story. I shouldn't have approached her. I know that, but I did anyway. That's a great book, I said. She looked up and smiled. It's my favorite. My friend gave it to me. Your friend? The man who comes to the park. He's really nice. He doesn't talk much, but he always sits on the bench and watches the playground. Last week, he gave me this book. My blood went cold. What man? What does he look like? But before she could answer, a woman's voice cut through the air. Emma, get away from her. A woman ran toward us, the girl's mother. She grabbed her daughter and pulled her behind her. Who are you? Why are you talking to my child? I'm sorry. I didn't mean. I know who you are. You're Jake Morrison's wife. My stomach dropped. How do you? Because your husband has been coming to this playground for 2 weeks, sitting on that bench. She pointed to a bench at the far end of the playground, just sitting there, staring at the children. Do you know how many parents have called the police? I felt dizzy. He was on medication. He was sleepwalking. He didn't know what he was doing. He gave my daughter a book. He bought her a gift. That's not sleepwalking. That's predatory behavior. No, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. I want you and your husband to stay away from this school. Stay away from my daughter, or I will get a restraining order. She grabbed Emma's hand and walked to her car. I stood there in the parking lot, trying to breathe, trying to understand. Jake had been coming to this playground, watching children, giving them books, and he couldn't remember any of it. When I got home, Jake was in the kitchen making lunch. I showed him the book, showed him Emma's school. Do you remember going to this playground? No, I've never been there. You gave a little girl a book, Jake. You sat on a bench and watched children play. His face crumbled. I would never. That's not me. But it is you. It was you. You just don't remember. We sat at the kitchen table for hours, trying to piece it together, trying to understand why the Ambien made him do these specific things. His therapist later explained that sometimes sleepwalking behaviors reflect subconscious desires or unresolved issues. Things the person thinks about during the day manifest in strange ways at night. Jake and I had been trying to have a baby for 3 years. We'd done IVF twice. Both times failed. We'd been talking about adoption but couldn't afford it yet. Apparently, his brain had been processing that grief while he was asleep, creating a fantasy daughter, buying her gifts, watching children play at the park, living out a life he desperately wanted but couldn't have. But none of that made it better. None of that changed what he'd done. The breaking and entering, the trespassing, the approaching children at a school playground. We had to hire a lawyer. Not because he was charged with anything, but because we needed someone to help navigate all the police reports, all the neighbors who wanted answers, the school that banned him from the premises. Dr. Hammond wrote letters explaining the Ambien connection, provided medical records, testified that this was a documented side effect, and Jake had no control over his actions. Most people accepted it. Some didn't. Emma's mother never forgave us. She started a neighborhood Facebook group warning people about the sleepwalking predator on Maple Street. We thought about moving, but where would we go? How do you escape something like this? The nighttime disappearances stopped completely after Jake quit the Ambien, but the damage was done. I check on him every night now, multiple times, just to make sure he's still there. Still himself, still awake and aware of what he's doing. Sometimes I wake up at 2 a.m. in a panic, reaching across the bed to feel if he's there. He always is, but I can't shake the feeling that during those 2 weeks, my husband was living a completely different life. One he doesn't remember, one I'll never fully understand, one that hurt people, scared people, made parents lock their doors and watch their children a little closer. Last week, I was cleaning out the garage and found something wedged behind a box, a Barnes & Noble bag. Inside was another book, Charlotte's Web, brand new. Still had the price tag. Jake doesn't remember buying it. We donated it to the library, anonymously. The pill bottle is still in the trash, just to remind us.